Right, let's bring in human rights lawyer and activist Inibehe Effiong. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. I mean, this is quite troubling when you lump the Nigeria police, the Nigeria military, though we do salute them every day, appreciate what they're doing for us, bandits, and of course parents. You lump them all together as the ones who are most guilty or most culpable, if you like, when it comes to human rights abuses in Nigeria. What's exactly giving rise to this?
Thank you for having me. It is not surprising to some of us who have been at the vanguard of exposing what has become a systemic impunity, culture of impunity, and entrenched lawlessness and criminality in our law enforcement institutions. And quite sadly, despite the passage of the Anti-Torture Act of 2017, which criminalized the torture of suspects in our country by the police and other law enforcement agencies. From 2017 to date, I'm challenging the Nigerian government. No single member of the police force or the armed forces or any other law enforcement agency has been put on trial on account of the violation of the Anti-Torture Act. Now, what has happened? And that is why today, at the presentation of the report on the state of human rights in Nigeria by the National Human Rights Commission, which I attended, it was not surprising that the military and the police is now officially indicted, because this has been happening over time. Even in 2018, when the Buhari regime set up a panel directed the National Human Rights Commission, or the National Human Rights Commission undertook investigation into extrajudicial killing and human rights abuses by the police, particularly SARS. Nothing came out of it. In 2020, the whole country was inflamed by the NSAS protests that took place all over the country, which of course climaxed in the massacre at the toll gate on the 20th of October. After that protest, the federal government of Nigeria said they were going to investigate abuses by the police. Panels were set up in most states of the country. Till date, I'm not aware that a single member of the armed forces or the police has been put on trial for being indicted by these panels.
In spite of the fact that there were compensations paid, that in itself is a glaring indication that there's guilt in terms of human rights abuse. But why do you think this continues to be the case, where there's no accountability on the part of all of those who've been, pointed out here, except of course maybe the bandits, because some would say there's no political will to actually go after the bandits?
It is very simple. In the first place, the compensation that you have mentioned, save for Lagos and the National Human Rights Commission that paid some compensation to some people, the rest of the country basically abandoned the reports of the panel that recommended compensation. So most Nigerians who were awarded monetary compensations have not been paid anything. Now, the truth of the matter is that the Nigerian political class, I don't like the word elites, because I doubt if we really have elites in our country today. Right. The political class in our country has made up its mind that they will not allow a country where the rights of Nigerians are respected. The police have not only been reduced, has not only been weaponized, has not only been trivialized, but has been highly politicized. So when you have a country where policemen are snatching ballot boxes, where policemen are aiding criminals, where policemen are providing escort services to hoodlums and people with questionable character, you now understand why respect for human rights is not respected, is not taken seriously. Every IG that comes into office will tell you, for example, we are withdrawing VIP protection. We are withdrawing policemen from VIPs. Even under the current IGP, it has never been implemented. Every IGP that comes on board will tell you we are dismantling roadblocks. It has not been implemented. Under the current IG, as we are speaking this moment, Nigerians are being extorted across police stations in the name of payment for bail. Nigerians are being arrested in lieu of people that are looking for. They come to your house, they cannot find you, they arrest your mother, they arrest your brother. These things are happening daily, and some of us that are active in the field, we are actively engaged in these cases on a daily basis.
This impunity that you talk about, does it not go on because the rest of society really is tolerant of it? Isn't that where, you know, Nigerians should begin to say never again, or no to, you know, this impunity, no to human rights abuse and what have you? And then it will begin to reflect in how this security services engage with the public. Isn't that where the solution really has to come
I
from?
don't think...
Because otherwise, how
Yes.
do we push back on this? How do we, you know, change this culture of impunity?
I do not agree that Nigerians have resigned to fate. I mean, I mentioned the NSAS protests. Look at the end bad governance protest that just took place. People are still protesting, and more protests will take place. But what has been the reaction of a supposed democratic dispensation, a supposed democratic regime? Those who claim that they took part in Nadeko, those who took part in Occupy Nigeria, those who protested in the past and came to power, they are now in power. They said they were going to be progressives. See how far backward they have taken the country. So today, when you carry a placard, they are charging you for treason, including 13-year-olds. Children that are 13. They are being charged for treason, for taking part in protests in a country that claims to be civilized. And you have the Inspector General of Police coming out to defend what is clearly indefensible, coming out to offer explanation to an embarrassment that he has brought on the country. He has not been fired. The lawyer who filed the charge on behalf of the police has not been fired. Or that they are now acting as if they were not aware. These children were kept for 3 months. For doing what? They said they took part in protests.
And that is why, I mean, I ask, how do we begin to change things? Well, you've inaugurated this Human Rights Defenders Forum, right?
Yes.
I mean, what is this forum going to do about the issue of human rights in Nigeria?
No, what the National Human Rights Commission did today is quite commendable and historic, because we have a situation where human rights defenders are being targeted. You know, are also victims of human rights violation. I myself have also been a victim of the violation of my rights. Senab had their office raided. You have people that are active in the civic space being attacked. There's an outspoken journalist now in Imo State that is being incarcerated as I'm talking to you. In fact, his case came up today. So the National Human Rights Commission felt the urgency to set up a forum, right, to defend the rights of defenders. Because at the end of the day, the human rights defenders are also Nigerians. They are also victims of the Nigerian state. That is it not telling how brazen this government is, that we now have even the Secretariat of the Nigerian Labour Congress raided. The NLC, because they were accusing them of taking part in bad governance protests. The Nigerian Labour Congress had the Secretariat raided by agencies of government, security agencies of government.
So everybody's been touched one way or another, even the judiciary. I mean, there was a time when the, you know, judges of the Supreme Court, justices of the Supreme Court were actually raided. So what can we take away from this conversation in a way that we'll say to ourselves, we need to do A, B, C, D, if this culture of impunity that reflects itself in our human rights abuse and, you know, other situations, how do we change this?
We can only count and hope on the civil society, those that are working in the human rights space. We can only also rely on our partners, both international and local. I mean, to begin to hold people accountable. And the Nigerian Judiciary, very important, which I am a member. The judiciary must wake up. The Nigerian judiciary needs to have a self-awakening. Because there is now this perception by those at the helm of affairs that whether you go to court or not, nothing will happen. I was before a learned judge of the Federal High Court in Lagos a few days ago. The judge was bitterly complaining about police lawlessness. He said, yes, when you come before me, I'll give you the orders. But what else can I do? So the judiciary must begin to assert itself. The judiciary must begin to insist on respect for the rights of Nigerians. Human rights cases must be prioritized, must be taken seriously. Judges must begin to understand most seriously and take most seriously the pivotal role, the very sacred position that they occupy in enriching our democratic space. Because at the end of the day, if the entire country collapses, if the entire civic space shrinks, if we continue this descent into impunity, and gross disregard for human rights. Everybody will be a victim.
And
Look at
unfortunately,
the
children are the receiving end too, and it's quite troubling that child abandonment has reached 4,300, and we're talking about August alone,
Yes.
just in 1 month.
Yes.
What are we doing? Do we even know what happens to these abandoned children?
The politicians, the government doesn't want to train them. It is deliberate. Keeping the Nigerian child uneducated, poor, impoverished, and abandoned is a deliberate but silent policy of government. Because when elections come, they use these children as voters. They allow them to become political thugs, to graduate into thuggery. So they know that if you have an elected population, people will begin to hold them accountable. Look at what is happening up north, where children are basically thrown into this Almajiri system, and you are surprised that we have a new terrorist group in our country. What is the incentive for joining them? When these children are abandoned, since 2003, that the Child Rights Act was passed in our country, till today, we are still seeing children hogging on the streets of our major cities in our country. We are still seeing children abandoned. It doesn't go to a point that we have a president whose children are living large, becoming first son, first daughter, whatever, and under him, children that are 13-year-old, they were hunted, detained for 3 months, taken before a court for trying to overthrow a president, 13-year-old. This is an embarrassment. So it tells you the mindset of the people in power. They do not believe in the Nigerian child because they don't believe. The summary is that those are the aims of affairs in this country. They have seceded from Nigeria. That is why when they are sick, they fly abroad, they build their houses abroad, they send their children abroad.
I wish I could play the devil's advocate here, but unfortunately, my hands are tied. I really cannot, because I would not be justified if I did. But we'll have to leave it there. I mean, 300,000 complaints received by NHRC from Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones in the last 10 months, which means, I mean, it's a lot. Nigerians
that is just the National Human Rights Commission alone.
Not talk of other. Yes. We'll have to leave it there. Inibehe Effiong, as a human rights lawyer, thank you very much for joining us.